Welcome to the Tech Simple podcast. Independent insights into the latest AV technologies, as well as tips and best practices to optimize AV solutions for modern workplace and learning environments. Here are your hosts, David and Jonathan from Konnectus AV Consulting.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Great to be here. David, welcome.
Hey, Jonathan. How are you, mate?
I am doing fantastic today, actually. Today, we're actually got a bit of a special one. It's a bit of a mini-series, is my understanding. What are we going to be covering?
That's right. Two-part series. We'll talk in part one in today's episode about networked AV devices. That's definitely a trend. It's been around for a little while, I guess, but more and more it's becoming prevalent out there in the marketplace, and we need to talk about it. So we're going to go through some different types of AV devices and cover some considerations around the implementation of those. And in part two, the next episode, well, in that one we're actually going to cover, well, why are we even bothering about network devices in the first place? There must be some, tangible benefits or positive impacts to businesses to go down this path. And so we're going to, really look at that in some detail. And I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Mate, that sounds really good. So let's start off with that part one then. What are networked AV devices? I suppose we start there. Absolutely.
Well, as you know, there's two different types, and I guess you can give us that distinction, if you will. There's a video or audio over the network, as opposed to just devices which are maybe on the network and the signal's not running, on the network. Tell us a bit more.
Yeah, that is important to understand. Everybody says network audio, or AV over IP, and what they're really saying there is sending the audio and video over network. But you can actually have another type of device, which is a lot more simple, which is just an intelligent connected device. So the AV is just your traditional HDMI and video signals, and they've got their own cables. But the network is actually being used to have a window into that device, which is a lot simpler, actually.
Right. So, back to AV over IP, for example, what we're doing is leveraging the existing network. Is that right? The business or organization might have. They've already got the infrastructure in place, and we're just sending audio and video signals across that infrastructure, generally saving on doubling up on the infrastructure, which is what we've all done for so many years gone by, isn't it?
Yeah, we've almost built side-by-side networks, which is obviously pretty much double the cost.
It can be, yeah. So that's definitely a consideration. But the other one you're talking about there, where you're not leveraging the network, you've got your own dedicated audiovisual networks. So what is that for? Just more for monitoring purposes, gathering information, maybe management of those devices, updating firmware, things of that nature?
All of the above, Dave.
Yep.
It really gives you, as I said before, it's like a window into the device. So you can pull information about how that device or selection of devices are being used. Are they being used a lot? Are they not being used at all? Or maybe just one feature is being used a lot. And that can really give you good information about what's happening in the room. Of course, as you know, your computer's updating every single day these days, and you see those Windows updates and your iPhone update. The same thing is happening with AV devices. There's updates, you get new features, there's security patches as well to keep those devices secure. As everything around it changes, it needs to change and update as well, and making it connected and intelligent lets you do that remotely, of course.
Yeah, cool. So we'll cover that in some more detail in part two of this two-part series, as mentioned. But let's talk a little bit about, some considerations around the implementation of these networked AV devices, Jonathan. You've got a lot of experience in this area. You work, hand in hand with IT departments and installation companies all the time in various different types of capacities, all the way from consulting up front, through to the on the tools, sort of getting things working during the commissioning phase. Have you got an example or some best practices you could share?
reflecting on what you just said there, Dave, one example comes to mind actually. And we were talking quite early in the piece just about those two different things actually, about, sending video and audio over the network and also having intelligent devices. And the intelligent devices component was really quite sticky with them, and they really saw the benefit to having intelligent devices. But this particular organization is actually quite security conscious, actually. And they have a lot of procedures and processes to manage and go through changes to get new things on the network. So they weren't ready day one to harness that. But what we worked with them on is, okay, well, these are great benefits. You really see the value in them. How do we still deliver the rooms and still deliver the spaces with functionality that the people need today, but build in a path so that when your IT is ready, we can just make a simple connection and then we don't have to do any significant changes.
Okay, so yeah, just a bit of future proofing so that when the time's right, it's not too sophisticated. It's just a simple switch over. Is that what you're kind of getting at there?
Yeah, that's right. We built the room isolated with the view to make it a semi-converged network. These are the two different approaches, and then made that connection to have it as a semi-converged. Of course, if your organization is already mature, you may also have a look at that third option in the architecture as well, which is a fully converged network, which is what you mentioned before, David, about leveraging the existing infrastructure.
Okay. Were there any particular challenges that you found along the way when you're working with that organization for that project? Did you come across those early, or do they come up later? I think that's important also to talk about, because generally what I've found with these things is the earlier you can talk about, preparing for the future or preparing for the project with all the relevant parties when it comes to network and security, the better, isn't it? Because you definitely don't want to be the other way around, where you plow ahead and then things come up and you're in reactive mode, and that can be very expensive to sort that out. So what are some maybe quick tips or best practices?
Yeah, one of the important things when selecting the product mix was actually back on the security side of things. And one of the key criteria was that the devices needed to be cyber secure or secure by design. And that was a key selection criteria. So we actually worked with multiple different manufacturers and asked, well, okay, out of the box, what is your device security like? And does it meet these set criteria that the client had in mind? So we engaged with the IT early and said, okay, well, what are your security criteria? Okay, we've got A, B, C, D. And then we were able to go to the manufacturers and say, okay, out of the box, are you able to meet A, B, C, D? And that really was a key leader in the design and selection of products. Now, if we didn't do that up front, we could have ended up with products that, yes, delivered the functionality in the room, but were never going to be able to meet those security requirements. And that would have been a very large problem.
Well, they wouldn't have been able to even install them. It would have just been a shutdown, no chance, go back to the drawing board situation, wouldn't it?
Correct. Or they would never be connected to the network, and you'd never be able to get those benefits from having those smart connected devices.
Oh, well, that's another good point. Yeah. All right. Well, there's many examples like that, but I guess the moral of that story is talk to the relevant parties early, do your homework on the products, understand the environment from a network, IT and security perspective, and just sort of plan accordingly, isn't it? Look, I think that is exactly what we're going to be talking about in part 2, which is the benefits. So, we've understood, yes, this is the trend. Yes, this is some best practices to get those devices ready. You've hinted that there are some real benefits, Jonathan, but in part 2, we're going to be talking about things like monitoring and the benefits of that for an organization, how having the devices on the network can really save you time and money around service and maintenance. And then the third one is around analytics. You can pull data and have a look at trends and analytics and try to optimize what's going on with your audiovisual assets in the organization. So that's just a little taster of what we're going to cover in part 2.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tech Simple podcast. To like, share, or discover more episodes, head over to Spotify. If you'd like to talk to us about AV in your workplace or learning environment, book an initial discovery call with David or Jonathan at konnectus.com.au. And remember,